Welcome back to Fossil Ridge Games. Today I'm going to walk you through the mechanic. You can find the mechanic in the Lost Ruins of Arnak, the Missing Expedition expansion. The first thing I'm going to do is help walk you through the setup for this. You're going to have 8 of these tokens. These tokens are going to be flipped over and they have different icons on them which correspond to different things in the game. And what they're going to do is they're going to fit into the spokes on this dial on the right hand side of the screen, and this dial is then going to rotate over the course of the game. So when you're setting up the game, go ahead and put all of the tokens face down, mix them up to randomize them, and then what you're going to do is take a set of these tokens and you're going to put them off to the side. So I'm going to put these off to next to the player board. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in on the bottom of the player board right here and notice that there's a 1, a 3, and a 5, and this is going to correspond to the different rounds of the game. So you're going to take one set of each of these and you're going to essentially put them on the board at the top of the board where the time tracker is. Now when you hit the beginning of the round for that time tracker, you're going to go ahead and grab the corresponding rewards. Next up we have the Monkey Assistant, and this is also going to be placed on the board for round 3. So when you hit round 3, this Monkey Assistant is going to go into the active slot on your board, which is just located right here. What's neat about the mechanic is that they can actually have 3 assistants over the course of the game. So the monkey is going to be an automatic one that you get. So at the beginning of the first turn, you're going to take the set of these markers off the board and you're going to go ahead and just flip them over. And as I said before, they have different icons which correspond to the different icons present in the game. And so what you can do is you can go ahead and take one of these and then the other one is just simply removed from the game. This is going to be based upon maybe sort of your intent or how you want to play the game over the course of that. Now, what makes it a little bit difficult, since it's the first round, you don't necessarily know how the game is going to unfold because it's at the very beginning of the game. But just keep in mind that you can take these and then use these over the course of the game. So the one that you select, you're going to take and you can stick it in this dial at any location. So for instance, we could stick it at the top of this dial. And there are some icon cards in your player deck that allow you then to rotate, to essentially rotate this dial around. Okay, I'm going to pop in just a little bit so you can take a look at this. And so as this dial rotates, it's going to give you special abilities, and we're going to key off the right-hand side of the screen. So next up, what I'm going to do is walk you through how those mechanics work. Next, I'm going to walk you through what some of the icons mean on the mechanics basic cards. So what I'm looking at right here is a fast effect, and there's going to be a silver icon gear next to that. I'm going to walk you through what that means. When this silver gear icon triggers, we're going to rotate this dial 90 degrees. And then what that allows us to do, we're going to be looking at this position right here on the right-hand side. That allows us to pick one of the 2 silver widgets that are flanking this position. So when I get the teamwork icon and I rotate the dial, it allows me to pick one of these icons to trigger, but not both. Now, consequently, there is also a gold gear card in the game as well. Notice that this is a fast effect, and this is for the gold gear. So we're kind of going to do the same thing. So in this case, we're going to rotate the dial 90 degrees. Now in this case, I have 2 different choices. So I can either execute what's on the gold widget right here, which would mean that I get both of these icons, or what I can do is get both of the silver widgets that are flanking this position. So I could get the automobile and the gold coin. Now there's kind of a caveat to that. And what that means is that, let's say we trigger this effect again and we have to rotate the dial. So in this case, I'm going to rotate the dial 90 degrees. And although I had the gold gear icon, this only allows me to pick one of the 2 silver sprockets that is flanking this position. I don't get both. I only get both if I rotate the dial and the gold widget ends up in this right-hand position, but I don't get both of the silver widgets if this position is blank. So kind of what that means is that you want to supercharge your dial as soon as possible, which means that you want to get additional gold widgets onto your dial so that you can utilize and get more of these icons. So that's going to be really the key to playing the mechanic, is getting your dial fleshed out immediately. Now, some of this stuff might seem a little bit confusing, but thankfully on the player board, there are some reminders for you. So if you look right here in the top left-hand corner of the actual dial, you're going to see the icons that I just walked you through, and it kind of gives you a reminder. So the little check mark means, hey, if you rotate a widget into this position, you're always going to rotate to the right. It allows you to execute either the gold icon or both the silver. And then consequently below it says, hey, if you don't have it in that position, you can only execute one of the silver widgets. In the top hand corner, we also see that it has the silver gear icon. And these are helpful reminders to you when you're playing the game. As a quick rules clarification, something I have noticed when a new player uses the mechanic for the first time, they try to rotate the dial and just keep rotating it back and forth like this. That's not actually how the dial rotates. When you rotate the dial, it always rotates 90 degrees in a clockwise direction, or to the right. So you're always going to trigger it in this way. So by no means can you just simply swap it and flip it back and forth over the course of the game. Next, I'm going to walk you through a game tip when you are playing the mechanic. You're going to have this card called Teamwork present in your initial set of cards when you start the game. Please notice we already went over the top part of this card, but we're going to really focus on the bottom part of this card. It says if you have 3 assistants, you may exile this card to gain 2 of these gold widgets. Okay, well, now what exactly does this mean? I'll try to zoom in on this card a little bit better so you can see it. Notice that there's a stack of 2 of these widgets next to each other. So when we were setting up the mechanic, we set off to the side a set of these gold widgets. This is directly to be used in conjunction with your Teamwork card. So when this card finally triggers and you have 3 assistants on the board, you can take these 2 gold widgets that are down on the table. You can obviously then flip them over, and you can keep one of them and then attach it to your dial. It's backwards. And then the other one gets then removed from the game. This is a really subtle sort of tactic when you're playing the mechanic. This is the only way that you can get the last set of the gold widgets into play. Now, what does that mean for your dial and your overall strategy? So we're going to zoom back over to this side of the player board. And we talked about this before, but we noticed that when you hit round 3 of the game, we have that gold widget icon as well, and we have the monkey. So right when we hit the 3rd round of the game is when the monkey, his name is Rusty, comes into the game, and he goes to this specific position on the player board. Really what you want to be targeting when you're playing the mechanic is to have 2 additional assistants in play, okay, in the game when you hit the beginning of round 3. This will then allow you to execute this Teamwork card. Hopefully you draw it during that round, and then that way you can remove this card from the game, which means exile the card from the game, and then you can get your extra set of gold widgets to place onto your dial. This is a pretty subtle strategy, and if you don't know that it's in the game, it's easy to miss. So kind of as a recap overall on the game, when you get assistance, you have to go down the research track on the actual right-hand side of the game board. So be aware that when you're playing the mechanic, you get some sort of incentive to add 2 assistants early on in the game, and that can help you overall. Notice too that Rusty is pretty helpful. And Rusty has both the silver and the gold icons. So in his normal non-upgraded mode, basic mode, he's got the silver gear. Then when the monkey powers up, it has a gold gear on the back side of the card. So go ahead and think about this strategy when you play the mechanic. It's actually very helpful, and it gives you a large advantage. By the time you hit round 5, if you have used your Teamwork skill over the course of the game and you've exiled it using Rusty and you have 3 assistants, this is what your dial is going to look like at the very end when you're starting round 5. Notice that every single position is filled with gold widgets. That is going to make your last game round extremely impactful, and you can do a lot of things. Please be aware when you start that game round, sort of have an overall strategy of what you want to do. It's almost overwhelming because you have so many options on that dial. So take just a few moments at the start of round 5 to look over all of your options and make sure that you plan it out. You can do some amazing, amazing last round plays with the mechanic using this dial. Overall, I think the mechanic is a good choice for your leader when you're playing the Lost Ruins of Arnak. If you are somebody that's a little bit newer to the game, I believe that this character is a little bit more on the advanced or challenging side when you're playing some of the characters. I would kind of recommend, if this is kind of like your first game of Arnak, definitely kind of go with an easier leader to play. The Missing Expedition set brings in 2 additional leaders into the game, and this one I think is probably one of the more complex characters in the entire game, at least thus far. I find it very, very versatile. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming when you're looking at all of the different possibilities on the dial, and it kind of makes your brain just freeze and makes your brain hurt a little bit. But it's a good type of hurt because you have so many different options that you're trying to work through in your brain. So I hope you give the mechanic a try, and the next time you play the Lost Ruins of Arnak. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and as always, have fun gaming.